Yes. Hello. Hello. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first panel of the day. As Rob said, we have the QR code, so please feel free to scan the QR code, send the questions. We will be looking at the questions at the end of the panel, and we will be choosing the questions that we might feel more relevant for the topic that you can see of this panel. So the topic is, are you taking technology to its full usage? As you can probably hear from my accent, I am from Spain. You can feel that technology is embedded in our day-to-day lives. Recently, you may have read or seen in the news a huge disruption that happened in Spain and Portugal recently, where electrical power outage happened and took all the different devices that are used by all of us in day-to-day lives. So now I will be looking at how are we using technology in construction and design and operations as well. So we have our experts here in the panel from different backgrounds, from developers, software providers, and contracting companies. So without further ado, let's dive into this conversation. Now, the first question will go around the understanding of the current state and the challenges that we have about how do we leverage technology to its full usage. So if I can start with you, while many companies claim that they're investing in digital transformation, the reality often shows scattered, superficial use of the tools. Faik, in your experience, leading high-impact master plans, what does full usage actually look like on the ground? And are we anywhere near to that as a region?
Hi, good morning. The full use goes beyond digital platform. Here, when we talk about full use, we talk about absorption, not the adoption. Absorption means when we embed those digital tools in our supply chain operation execution model. And when we get, for example, BIM, an isolated tool for clash detection or an as-built manual tool, isolated a silos tool, instead of having it embedded within a full integrated system across the project lifecycle. And when we have a planner, when we have a contractor, when we have an engineer, depending on real-time synchronized data, not a silos in their daily action. Are we there yet? Honestly speaking, not yet. Since we are considering those digital tools as an optional layer, not within our execution platform, not within our operation framework. Thank you.
Thank you, Faik. Lee, let's continue with you. Many companies believe that tech automatically will boost productivity, but without field-level adoption, it really moves the needle. So Lee, from what you have seen across the region, from owners, contractors, what does it actually take to drive real productivity gains on site beyond just rolling out?
Yeah, so I think, good morning, everybody. So when you think about adoption, we think sometimes, and actually the gentleman here just said it, we think adoption is going to automatically mean productivity, where the reality is it's more about, how you're using the technology across all of the levels within your organization. We often see field tools used in a way that doesn't really meet the demands of the board or the executive leadership, or we see it the other way around. It's an executive leadership mandate to use the tools, and there's not really an uptake on the adoption side of things. But to achieve the kind of real productivity, you have to go through a change management process. You can't just be thinking about the technology in its own right. And in which case, then you have to start to think about what's in it for me. And what I mean by that is all different levels of your organization, have an obligation to think about, why am I using this technology? What is it delivering as part of my job? How is it going to make us more productive? So I think, we don't do enough of that, in my opinion, in the region. Actually, globally in our industry, it's very difficult to drive. We're quite fragmented when you think about owners, main contractors, subcontractors, specialty contractors. You're already talking about multiple different organizations within a program. And that just adds the level of complexity. So really, you have to think about change management very hard.
Thank you. So let's now continue with Fadi, maybe. From the contractor point of view, we know the complexities and that we have on construction sites. So how has Bawani Holding managed this cultural change in its workforce, particularly driving productivity and technology adoption?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everybody. So when it comes to the general, again, I think the key thing here is about the adoption element. Change management is not considered. I don't think it's focused enough, especially I've been in the industry for 5 months. So when I first got here, it's not just buy something and people will use it. Okay. I started my first experience on the actual ground at the sites, understanding just to see where technology is being used, how people are processing things. And I was actually quite surprised. I come from an EPC oil and gas background, and it reminded me back in 2018 when I joined Petrofac. It was exactly the same thing, which is a good thing because there's a lot of opportunity. And I did my research for other contracting groups as well, and it's pretty much the same thing. I think the challenge that we have when I look back at this is about the fact that we have a lot of legacy to deal with, and changing legacy where it's worked for so long. Again, as we said, there's an ecosystem operating. So from a contracting perspective, it's all about the margins, right? And we need to make sure we meet the client's, requirements. So it's a sort of battle of bringing technology that makes sense, that is cost effective, and at the same time add that value. However, I do see there's a pivotal point now that regardless, contracting groups are having to invest now in 3 areas. So again, it was about the adoption of technology that allows us to have seamless integration. We talked about this, and I think we've heard it multiple times about we have silos or fractured operations. The second point is about how we utilize information. We need a single source of truth, which is, again, because of silozation, it's very hard to have a single source of truth. And then the final thing really is about the people. So it's a people about bringing in these digital natives, the champions that are going to be, not saying that the fact that people have been 15, 20 years in the organization, because the subject matter experts is extremely valuable, but we need to fuse this talent between newer forward thinkers when it comes to technology, but with the subject matter experts. Yeah.
Thank you, Fadim. So let's continue now with Jay. So referring now about the people, which is very important at the center of ROSHN. So at ROSHN, technology, it's embedded into every community that you build. How do you see the role of technology evolving from basic infrastructure into a true differentiator for resident experience and business growth?
Yeah, hi. Hello.
Hi, good morning.
I think at ROSHN, what we've understood very clearly is we've understood that technology is the core of the company, and what they got it right is in terms of having strategy as one of the core pillars in the whole organization's value chain, right? And DNA. Innovation is at the core of the DNA of the organization. So having that as a North Star of the organization has really helped boost it in terms of how we use technology in the entire value chain of the company. So everybody's thinking digital, everybody's thinking outside of the box, and there is a drive from the business as well, wanting to do things differently. So this helps elevate the positioning of how technology is being used, not only from a back office perspective, but also to become the real enabler of the business. And where we've seen this happening, and in the current stage of the organization, where we are focused a lot on not only building the homes, but also selling them. So that drives a lot of digitizations in the entire sales journey, the end-to-end sales journey. So, being able to purchase a home without even leaving your comfort space, you'll be able to explore, visualize everything in 3D, and being able to complete the entire transaction without a single piece of paper, right? and that helps boost in terms of the business growth, being able to accelerate sales, being able to kind of have large sales event that is cascaded nationwide at the same time, and being able to kind of channel those opportunities for people who are not able to come to the sales center during big launches. And for those residents who've moved within the communities, we accelerate that by enabling more digital touch points for the community management, for our facility management to kind of have smart insights in terms of how the environment that they need to manage with more connected IoT platforms that we've kind of rolled out within the community, and increasing the digital literacy across all the various business units that we have. So what I want to say is, technology is no longer an add-on at ROSHN, but it's the fundamental part of how we create a new digital lifestyle within our smart communities.
Thank you, Jay. I'm now Mayank at ARADA. So how has ARADA addressed the cultural change and the cultural resistance to technology adoption? And what strategies have proven the most effective in overcoming these challenges of cultural change?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I think the most critical point when it comes to adoption of technology, I think some of my panelists mentioned about it, is on the change management. For everybody to understand why should they do it, why should they use it, because otherwise, at times things really get decided, they get driven from the top, and gets implemented, but not really used. And then there is a lot of effort that goes in for getting people to use it. And we look at the metrics, that how many people logged in, how much time they spend using that platform or that capability, instead of focusing on how did it actually help change the process itself. What is the most important value that whoever is the user, the last person on the ground, what is that it did for that user to make their lives better? So if you're able to really understand this, get that incorporated, as a part of the change management journey, have them included as the change champions or the drivers, then we've seen that adoption gets better. But of course, you will still find that it's going to be on a spectrum. There'll be people who will adopt it really well, who would excel. And usually those are the people, who become the ambassadors for that change. But that's not necessarily always going to be helpful. You want to find those people who are the most unlikely users of that capability, and if their life has become better, then you've kind of really cracked it, because you've got, so to say, the weakest link on the chain addressed, and now become the driver of change across the organization. And of course, along with this, the platforms or the capability that you want to bring in needs to be really simplified. So nobody actually drives how people would use WhatsApp. There are not really, those training videos and a lot of change management being done around it. Understand that not necessarily that kind of a capability can be brought in for the enterprise applications. But if we keep that as our goalpost, that if the platform or the capability that is being created is really simple, people understand why they should be using it, what is the benefit that will come out for them, really, to answer that question that Lee also spoke about, what's in it for me, then you really, nailed the bullet on the head.
All right. Thank you, Mayank. So now let's move to another topic around the same concept about the integration and the lifecycle management. So Lee, let's start with you. Today, most organizations are flooded with data. We heard earlier about how important data is, but few are translated into better decisions on the ground. So Lee, in your experience, helping firms consolidate workflows, what separate companies that turn data into action from those that just end up with more dashboards only?
Yeah, I think I was with a main contractor in Sharjah not long ago, and they'd gone through a transformation over the last 2 years, implemented their construction software, they implemented their ERP software, and yet they were still doing leadership and board meetings with spreadsheets and printouts. And the CEO said, I want to use the system. Why can't we've got all this data, everybody's adopted the software and we're using the systems. but we're not actually using the data to drive any decision making. And I think, how many times have I heard, we take our data and we think about what the lessons learned were from the last project or from what we can fathom from that data. Whereas actually there are, multiple technologies on the market today who would give you assistance. The gentleman before us was talking about AI. It can shift through vast amounts of data, and we just, we see, very little, a few examples of that across the region of really being able to drive decisions, having workflows that assist people in their day-to-day work, that, take away the 40% of the mundane decision making that really, doesn't make a difference or doesn't really add any value. So I think, that classic, looking in the rearview mirror of utilizing data is something that was 10 years ago was the norm. We have to start thinking about how can I utilize my data to make decisions for today, tomorrow, and for the next week. It can give you the statistics you need to understand, and it helps you with quality safety. It will help you with risk. It'll help you with budget and alike. So, it's we don't see that often being utilized, but companies now are starting to say, if the technology is smart enough, why can't I do every decision that I make can be assisted with AI or technology?
Thank you, Lee. Jay, let's continue with you. So from your experience at ROSHN, what initiatives have been the most effective in building digital capabilities across the wider business, not just the IT teams?
I can resonate in terms of what Mayank talked about, change management within the organization, right? So change in terms of what's happening today with technology adoption is one of the biggest talked about topic everywhere, right? And I think from what we've gone through at ROSHN, because having innovation at the core strategy of the company, to become more digital and data driven organization really pushes the agenda to every single employee within the company. So we have run digital literacy program across the whole company, where our internal ROSHN Academy is pushing those agendas, training people to make sure we have better usage of technology, where people come up with insights in terms of how they can, what are the new ideas that can be incubated and can be pushed out to them to improve productivity for their day-to-day work, and working with IT in terms of resolving and addressing the problems that they have by leveraging the technologies that we have, because technology is the Lego building block of everything today. So we can find various different solutions by thinking out of the box to help business and solve their problems, right? And second thing is also empowering the business users with additional tools. We've got new AI tools that are there, and we roll this out to every single employee, and we create adoption programs continuously, and there's a continuous learning programs, and there's easy access for the business team to reach out to the technology teams to kind of understand the products more, understand the usage more, and we proactively monitor the usage as well. So the moment we see adoptions dropping for certain products or tools, we push that back to the business in order to kind of increase the usage, increase the productivity within the team. We also run internal hackathon events where we co-create with the business, come up with the problems, and we work in terms of building the solutions in a very quick, agile manner with them. So pushing this ideology that digital is not only owned by the technology team, but it's owned by everybody in the organization. It's something that we want to kind of embed into the culture of the organization, and it's already embedded because of the North Star, where innovation and digital is at the core of the company.
Thank you, Jay. So, Faik, digital tools are often seen as site-focused, mainly helping the project execution. But in truth, the value goes across the full life cycle of the project. So what happens when digital transformation is deployed across the entire life cycle, especially for downstream stakeholders like the handover team and the facility management?
This is a very excellent point. See, because the impact of full digitalization across the project lifecycle will truly multiplies after the project execution team leaves. Like when we are having digital twin process mining implementing across the project lifecycle, that will create reliable data foundation for the downstream team can trust. Like, for example, when, as you mentioned, the operation service provider team often suffer from unstructured information, unreliable data, incomplete information during handing over. However, when we have digital transformation implemented across the project lifecycle, that will be a data engine of smarter and more efficient building management, which will create reliable, traceable, and full complete data with the automated as built for the operation team to use and depend on. Also will give the benefit for operation team to deploy the service provider ahead of time to gain from the time of the transition period. So, and this happened when the mindset change, when the cultural mindset change from adoption to absorption, as I mentioned before. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So Mayank, let's continue with you. So you did mention about change management and communication. So how do you ensure that these processes are robust and effective at ARADA?
See, at ARADA, there are multiple things that we kind of take care of when we are looking at any new initiative being brought in. Everybody spoke about data, and one of the things that we also did with our available data is to democratize it, make it available for everybody. So there are dashboards that exist in most of the organizations. There are limited people who have access to that information, and there are even more limited people who actually use it. So what we've done, as just as an example, we've enabled all the dashboards relevant for a particular function, broken down to a specific user, to be available on the internet. We call that as ARADA Insights. This is something which we say, is available or accessible for everybody. Of course, they will be able to see the information what is pertinent for them. But when we were trying to build a data-driven culture, we wanted that to be available and accessible for all. There were still people who did not use it. They were not really sure how is that they would be able to get value out of it, which came in as a next phase of building that awareness, telling them how we could get value from the available information that is there in our respective function, and encouraging them that how would they kind of be benefited if they were to try doing something like that. So that allowed whatever the data that we had, which we had integrated into our warehouse and made available for people to start using it. And once that thing gains momentum, then it becomes almost an unstoppable force. But the initial sliding friction was much higher as compared to the rolling friction. So getting the last set of team who actually would struggle trying to use those dashboards and would not really be able to articulate what is that they would want to see in a particular data set. If they are using it and they're saying that we are getting a lot of value out of it, I think we feel that the task is done. This as an approach of really looking at every project with its own nuances and trying to understand what is that we want to accomplish. That kind of helps us in determining what that change management strategy is going to be. And then we leverage the past experiences to see how best we can embed it and make it successful.
Thank you, Mayank. Thank you, Mayank. So to conclude this round of questions, Fadi, given the unique challenges in the construction industry, how do you approach technology adoption differently compared to other industries?
I think from previous experience, it's the same problems. I don't think it's industry specific. I think construction itself is a traditional business like the oil and gas industry. I think that today's day and age, we just need to be realistic as well. We have people that are running 100 miles an hour on what they do. At the same time, definitely, someone mentioned earlier, it is about transformation. We can't just do the same thing, but on a new system going forward. And again, as we said, data is a commodity. artificial intelligence is coming into the fray. An example is 2 years ago, there are solutions that weren't available that there are today that maybe the companies that are in this journey can leapfrog now on. One of the things we're looking at, just for an example, is MCP, which is Model Context Protocol. So this is where an AI agent talks to another AI agent. So things like document management in our industry, many clients request certain document management platforms like Econex, for example, and we may be using something else. We need to move away about those restrictions. We need to make sure that we break down those barriers. And the MCP protocol is something that I see as a really, really sort of groundbreaking, use of technology. Because at the end of the day, we need to be agile. We can't cater for everyone at the same time. But as we said, as Lee was saying before, we're working in an ecosystem, and that ecosystem is quite, challenging, right? So I think, as we said, there is opportunity. I think we need to look at things slightly differently. I mean, on the ERP approach, I'm looking at a composable ERP now for the organization. I'm using the best in class at the 3 levels of system of record, system of engagement, and system of innovation. But it allows me to use the best in class products, again, with a seamless experience, but again, keeping that single source of truth real. And that's what the things that, as I said, these are the challenges that we have on a day-to-day basis.
Excellent, thank you. So now let's get into the last round of questions for the panelists. So now we'll be looking at the benefits and the future outlook of how we see for deploying the technology to its full usage. So let's start with Jay. Jay, so data is often called the new oil. We did hear about it earlier in the AI presentation. So few organizations use it effectively, the data. How is ROSHN turning its data assets into real-time business and customer value, and how AI is being utilized at ROSHN?
So I think fundamentally the first thing that we looked at ROSHN was to ensure that the data and AI strategy is clearly defined, right? And having the single source of truth by unifying all of your data into a single platform and having a clear customer 360 view across all our customer data and operational data is fundamentally the utmost important thing. And a lot of organizations sometimes debate in terms of how much they should invest and allocate budgets on data initiative. And I say this is where you need to invest a lot of money because this is where you're going to get your 10x returns and higher than your 10x return, because data will monetize similar to oil, right? And just like oil, you have crude oils, you have to refine it in order to make profit out of it. Similar, we take our data, refine it in order to build better experiences for all our residents and customers, to make it usable for all our business. So yes, similar to what Mayank said, we have real-time dashboards that are provided to business leaders for real-time actionable insights on sales, operational, and customer satisfaction. But we've taken this as well and built something called the ROSHN AI Assistant, and we've loaded that. Sometimes it's a hassle of going through different dashboards. Now you can query all of that through the AI Assistant, and the AI Assistant has multiple views, has an employee view, has an executive view. So even if you want to cross-correlate between, what was discussed between various meetings and bots and different dashboards, those insights can give you that. We build that using OpenAI and Gemini as a model that kind of really drives in terms of the ambition of the organization to become more AI enabled. We've got predictive analytic use cases that we are working with our facility management team. And we've also started to create the new employees of today's age, which are the agentic AIs. So these are your virtual employees that are helping in terms of driving use case for operational efficiency, right? So to proactively resolve issues and address daunting tasks that many of the mundane employees do not need to. Mundane tasks that employees do not need to do anymore. So agentic AI is one of the new things that are being pushed on. So at ROSHN, data and AI are not just future ambition, but is current reality in terms of helping us build a smarter organization in terms of driving better lifestyle and community experiences for our residents. And this is what is part of the ROSHN DNA.
Thank you, Jay. Fadi, let's continue with you now. So, can you share some examples of how Bawani Holding is addressing the lack of technology adoption in construction, and what steps are being taken, mainly about what you mentioned earlier, to integrate technology more effectively?
Yeah, so again, we're on a transformation journey, and the way I'm looking at from the field back. I'm looking at from the front back office perspective. So again, there are technologies, again, the likes of Procore and products like that in the marketplace, many of them outside showing themselves with regards to focus on how do we actually take data from the field in an effective way, a timely way, and how we relate that back to the back office so that we're able to process that information. I think I think a lot of us can say that at the moment we're at the pivotal point where we're a very reactive, not a proactive, business. And as I'm talking about the contracting side. However, with the focus on understanding what's happening real time from the field and taking the information, but making sure we have the systems that are interconnected to make sure that we link between, the typical pillars of BOQ and workforce management and, the WBSs and etc. We're able then to have a much more conclusive picture of things that are going on. There is no silver bullet for it. I think a lot of companies have tried things a few years before. I've looked at other contracting companies, what they've done with technology. But I think it's more a pragmatic approach of, as I said, understanding what's happening at the field, translating that in back office, and then really getting that insights through through data and simulations as well. Another thing that we talked about the value of data when we've done a simulation in the company. We talked about the number of raw materials we use. We're talking about like how much concrete is being consumed across, like, let's say 40 projects. We're not doing the strategic procurement as well as we should be doing, and that's because of the fact that we don't have that complete visibility in one place. So when we've actually assessed these things, you'll come out with business decisions like, wait a minute, why don't we buy or create our own cement factory? Why don't we, so the opportunities now, as we talked about, when the data is clear, you're able to make much more actionable decisions that affects the ecosystem of what you're operating in. So
Thank you, Fadi. All right, so let's go next to Mayank. So you talked about earlier about the what's in it for me. So how do you address this among your employees when introducing new technologies?
Yeah. So I think the most important part there, whenever we're looking at any of these new initiatives, is how are the different stakeholders going to be benefited? And then when that project is being taken forward or is taken through an implementation phase, you continue to reinforce that message across the entire value chain so that people know, why am I actually important in this particular project? Why is this going to be beneficial for me? Because the view at the executive level could be very different as compared to the tactical level and then finally at an operational level. So unless we've addressed this at all of those layers, then the problem does not get solved. So executive could be okay, the operational team might be okay, but the tactical team might feel that they're losing control or they're not really going to be benefited out of it. So we need to have those custom messages identified and then reinforced throughout the journey to ensure that they remain aligned with whatever that is being done. And it's not always the case that everybody would be still fully aligned. So a lot of that objection handling or addressing those queries, their apprehensions, fears, worries is done before we take the project off the ground. But once that is done, then it's just about execution, continuing with that messaging, and ensuring that they remain committed to whatever those goals are.
Thank you, Mayank. Faik, now we have discussed the challenges, but what's the positive return? Like from your leadership perspective, what do we gain to go all in digital transformation?
Actually, to gain all this reliable data foundation and to build up the information that we need at the end of the project and create our a legacy that can be referred. We, as a DAMAC, we always focus on the structure. I know the culture resistance, it's a definite key culprit. However, it's not isolated. It's embedded with outdated structure. Like when the contract not enforce the digital deliverables, when the incentive not align with the KPI, definitely, as Mayank said, people will go to the familiar methods. So it's a rational response due to the lack of institutional support. So as we said in the MAC, we said culture follows structure, and we need both of them to evolve together. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So Lee, to conclude this set of questions and go to the questions from the audience. So at Procore, you have visibility of where technology is working well and where adoption struggles. So based on what the data shows, how important is clearly to define what needs to change in each team, and how does that shape whether digital transformation really sticks?
If you look at it at an industry level, so if you take the banking industry as an example, banks are now technology companies that hold our money and move it around. Automotive is, they are technology companies that, provide cars and transport us around. So how many of us in the room here think of ourselves as technology companies that construct? I don't think we do, right? We still think of it the other way around. So, but when you think about, we talked about productivity gains, we talked about adoption, we've talked about value, in the panel today, somebody somewhere is going to be able to say, well, I'm a technology company that constructs. I can do things faster than you. I can do things with better productivity than you, which means my margins will be better than you. And thus I can disrupt the industry. And I think that's, with the advancements of the technology that's coming. And I honestly, I think our time is up as an industry to be thinking that we can, and again, I think the gentleman before us said it can't be incremental gains, right? It's got to be leaps of faith on the technology side. And I think those companies that are embracing the technology the fastest are attracting the youngest talent. We all know that the talent challenges that we have coming, with the retirement of the workforce, we're making decisions based on experience, not on data. And I think, those companies that are, and I think everybody is embracing technology, of course they are, but I think it's a matter of leapfrogging where you think you're going and really trying to think about, am I a technology company that constructs, in which case then I can do things, smarter, faster, better than I do in today.
Excellently. So let's go now to the questions from the audience. We have a couple of minutes left. So I will drop the question for all of you and feel free to answer. I think that this question is a bit, just give me one word. What is the single most difficult thing in adopting new technologies? Maybe Fadi, if we can start with you. Just one thing.
I would just say people.
Faik?
Mind shift.
People.
Trust.
Jay?
Yes, people.
Okay, thank you. I hope that you found that interesting. So I think that this question is quite pertinent as well. So how can we ensure that we are using technology efficiently without becoming overly dependent of this technology that we have adopted? I don't know, any of you, if you would like to respond.
I'll make a comment there. I think and again, it came out in nobody thinks that technology is replacing us, right? It's just helping us remove some of the more mundane and unproductive activities, and helping us make more informed decisions. And I think if we think about it in that mode of operation, then, you mentioned earlier about being able to make the right decisions, on time. We know the benefits of that. So that's the comment I would.
I think I can say that we've seen this cycle before. This is not new. The age of internet, when it came in and everyone said, you will rely on the internet for everything that you do. And today, yes, we do it, but that doesn't replace your skill force. It creates new thought processes. It creates a new baseline in terms of how you do things. So the generations that's growing up now, will be a generation that is going to be AI enabled, technology enabled, but that is the baseline they will grow up with. But that doesn't mean that there will not be new cognitive ability that they will develop, and it's just part of evolution.
Thank you, Jane. And thank you to all the panelists. The time is over. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your questions. Please keep them coming in the next panels. So please give a round of applause to our panelists.